computer. Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Workshop 9 of PYF Winter Academy. This is our first December workshop. We had 8 workshops in November and it was awesome to have 100 plus students from all over the country join us. So as most of you know, my name is Bushra and I am the current head of education at the PYF. And we have a lot more in store for you after the Winter Academy as well. So excited to have you on board. So before we begin, first I'll let the volunteers briefly introduce themselves as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Aisha. I conducted one of the workshops earlier on during the Winter Academy. Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I've been looking forward to it since the beginning.
Good evening, everyone. This is Zahid, and I am just a volunteer for today's workshop, and I will be co-learning along with you guys, about the topic of the workshop. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Rabia, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Rabia and I am with PYF for 2 years and this is my second workshop that I am joining.
Thanks for coming, Rabia. All right, so really quickly before we begin, I want to go over some house rules to make sure that we have a real smooth experience. Just started sharing my screen. All right, so the key goal here is for everyone to have a good time and to learn something in that order. So the first thing, if you were sitting in a conventional classroom, we'd say put your phones away or don't get distracted. But we're not in a conventional classroom, we're on our devices. So what this sign here means is that please try to focus as much as possible on the workshop. Try not to multitask so that you can make the most of the experience. So we want this to be a safe space where students feel, where everyone feels open to sharing and learning freely. So please do withhold your judgments on people's responses and what they're saying. If you don't understand something, we want to make it an open environment. So come here with an open mind. For this workshop, especially, Yaseen has specifically requested that everyone keeps their cams on. We will be messaging you individually to request and see if you can please do that. We want this is an especially interactive session, so please try to keep your cams on as much as possible. And as you keep your cams on, please keep your mind open as well. And thank you, Zayed, for making this actually. And we're here to discuss. This is not a seminar, it's not a webinar, it's not a lecture. We're here to talk and interact. So please be prepared to share your opinions and speak your mind. And finally, have fun. So before we begin, one more thing that's good to establish is how we want to interact. So you can use the raise hand function to let us know that you want to speak. And you can also unmute your mic when prompted to speak. Yaseen, anything further on that?
No, it's fine. We will have a Q&A in the end. So if you have, unless it's something you don't understand and you don't feel like I'm not clear enough, or you maybe have a point, but let's also try to finish on time as well. So it'll be a balance of asking questions as well as sticking on time.
Perfect. And so with that, I'm now going to hand over the workshop to our lead, Ms. Muhammad Yaseen Farooqui.
Hello. This feels weird doing it virtually for the first time, so I just have to be very clear. So I don't want this to be a very formal kind of a workshop. I understand there's a bit of a age difference. I look older than I am. I'm younger than Bushra, I think. But the whole idea is be very open and clear that only thing that you needed to do while attending this workshop is just be the most truest version that you can of yourself and just go with the flow, I guess, from there. So with that, we begin. So I hope all of you have answered the question on if there's a weird fact about yourself that you don't normally share. And the reason why I want you to do that is I want you all to lower that barrier that usually is there when people have this knowledge transfer. They usually put up this barrier of, I might know this, or I don't think I should do this, or why do I need to do this? Any of those barriers that sort of come in the way of your learning process. And the best way I found to break those barriers is just being openly weird about yourself. So please do share that in the chat. I'll just make sure the volunteers have made you all come out of your comfort zone. So with that, we'll move on. That is nice. This is stuck. This is a good start. Okay, there we go. All right. So the workshop's about how to create a successful mindset. And a bit about myself. As Bashir said, I am Muhammad Yaseen Farooqui. My background is I work as a digital transformation consultant. That's a lot of words for those of you who don't know much about consulting. So technically, my day-to-day job is working with CEOs, CIOs, or chief digital officers of companies, and sometimes even chief marketing officers of companies to plan their business models and strategies. And I'm doing this alone. I do work with a larger group of partners and junior partners, and then myself, along with managers to execute this. So it's sort of that process and the whole goal is how do we make an impact on clients, advising them on their digital transformation journey. So that's what consulting's about. Accenture, for those of you who know about it, is one of the top 10 consulting firms in the world and #1 in digital space. So it's a very, very nice environment, and I hope to see some of you faces in there within the next 10 years, hopefully, and just taking that as a career route if it's interesting to you at all. With that being said, okay, yeah, previously a startup co-founder. So I think this has been the biggest learning journey of my life, where starting a company was my biggest mistake, while simultaneously being something I picked up a lot from. It was the biggest impact it made in my learning curve, because it made me something that a typical Pakistani culture doesn't teach you, which is thinking for your own self and making decisions based on analytics and analyzing information and truly understanding what you want and why you want it and having a purpose behind it. So that's something I hope this translates into the workshop as well. I started my journey with Oracle and Astrolabs, the Google's tech hub in Dubai. In terms of something I'm very excited about as well is initiatives around the UN GC that I worked with, and how that made an impact on sustainability initiatives within the UAE. So I'm really proud of that work that I've done, and exposed me to a very different side of corporate life, which is the non-tech side of it, and sustainability as well. And lastly, I have a computer science degree, certificate from Harvard and Kellogg School of Business. And this is my best accomplishment. I'm Bushar's mortal enemy. So there you go, Bushar, that was a surprise. I'm gonna move on with that. Today's agenda is I'm gonna break this workshop down in a theoretical aspect and a practical aspect. So the theoretical stage, or what we're gonna work on, is understanding the basics of what's a fundamental mindset. So I spent about 4 to 5 years reaching out to mentors and executives and co-founders, and I just pinged them randomly, met them at events or things like that. And I was like, okay, how can we make or do something, how can we make an individual who's an ordinary person into something extraordinary? And what is the biggest starting point for this individual that's there? So in understanding those concepts, I realized eventually what the biggest peak in anyone's career was their mindset. Now, in terms of definition, this is really lagging. All right, okay, there we go, cool. Yeah, so a mindset in general. So people usually ask, how would you define it? So it's a very natural thing. The statement is from Cambridge Dictionary, a person's way of thinking and their opinions. Does anyone else have a different version or a different variation that they would like to introduce? I can't see the chat, by the way, can I? If you have a different way, you can either speak up or put it in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with. And there's no wrong answer, so feel free just to put something in there. Anyone? Okay, no one has a different version. Okay, we have something. Aisha, is it possible for you to just, because I can't see the...
Yeah, so Furqan is saying that it is a person's perspective about something.
Okay, got it.
And
yeah.
Also, Zubair is also saying, could you try to speak a little bit louder?
Got it. Cool. Yeah, that's not a bad approach, because a mindset is definitely how you grasp information and view it from your own perspective. So it's a very interesting aspect of how we think, because even in science, if I'm correct, the mind is still something we've not 100% understood on how it works and functions down to the last detail. I mean, we understand the organs and mechanisms and everything, but when it comes to, for example, psychology and how the human mind just evolves and adapts, it's a very interesting process. So, cool. Right, so how does generally a mindset impact us? This is like a sort of a mind map that I want you to follow. Generally, it starts with your thought process. So anything you say or think before you even say it or do starts with how you start thinking about it. So for example, someone says COVID vaccine is bad. That's your thought. You've picked up on that thought or that idea and you're clinging on to that idea. Eventually that turns into an action where you're like, okay, you know what, I don't want to get vaccinated. It's a very stupid example, but just go with me. And eventually you become a person who doesn't support any kind of vaccination at all. You are identified as a non-vaccinator, that's a term. And eventually it's what you become, the kind of person who doesn't want to go through that process. It's a very stupid example, but my point is it all starts and trails back to this point of how you control your thought process, because that's where it all starts. Because once it gets there, it'll eventually creep into your actions, which will eventually start defining you, and then which is eventually what you become as a person. So let's take a more relevant example for you all. So how does a mindset impact you all in school? And while I'm sharing these, I want you all to at least contribute one or two ideas of how you think are certain kind of mindsets within your own school. So, or something more specific to you in the chat, or if you want to comment after I'm done, feel free to do that as well. So take your time while I'm finishing these. So an example for the first one would be courses. When someone says something is so tough for me that I'm like, it's not meant for me, this course can't happen, like math can't be done, or math is not a possible thing to do, or science is not my thing, or I'm not meant to do this, I'm not meant to go for something as a course or a career option. And what's important is that's a negative sort of a mindset that you're already putting yourself down. But then there's also another kind of mindset that people don't notice is sort of in a way negative, but impacts you negatively. It's not a negative thought process, but it's a negative impact on yourself, which is I'm too smart and I don't need to study as much as others, or what people would say overconfidence of a kind. So being too confident, being too cocky to the extent that you're not even touching your books and curriculums till the last moment, either because of procrastination or because of kind of an attitude, it doesn't really help in your mindset. And that's one example of a negative mindset within your courses. With your teachers, you can ask which teachers are easier to deal with, which ones are not, which courses that you take on IGs or different curriculums, you can find examinations or you can find previous past papers or whatever it is. And then friends are in the form of example. My friends don't study, so I don't need to study as much, right? Or if my friends are studying 6 hours, I should study 6 hours and I probably might get the same grades as them. And that's another definite mindset that hurts and damages people along the line. Or people just saying yes anytime they're supposed to be studying and saying yes to things they're not supposed to be doing while studying. Exams, creating a mindset before exams. I think a lot of people who are high academic achievers tend to do that as well. They put this blockade in their mind, it's going to be a hard exam. It's said, it's done, you know it, you know the teacher who's making the exam, or IGs are known to be hard because everyone says they're very hard. And you're like, in the back of your mind, it's a very hard thing. So you've already thought, it's not possible, I'm not going to be able to do it. And eventually the problem with all these things is, like I said, you come to the point where it starts defining you. Now, I want to see what you guys said. If anyone wants to speak up, go ahead and give an example. Right. I'm not seeing, okay.
Afaf has raised her hand.
Okay. How do I access that?
Afaf, you can just unmute yourself.
Yeah, if you can, sorry. Very
All right,
bad.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Go ahead.
Sure. So, the way that I have an example is basically with math. I used to hate math so much because sometimes my friends would love to do math, and I would just not find that way of going into that zone in which you love a subject. And that was like the talk of grade 4, grade 3. I used to hate math. But then as the teachers were also, it also affects on the person who you are getting the information from.
It
If
does
that
definitely.
person is also being a very good one, then you automatically fall in love with the topic, with the subject. So as we proceeded to like more higher grades, I had many other teachers from grade 6 and 7, and then math is my favorite subject now. So it has having a mindset, it has two ways, negative and positive. Either it is a yes or it's a no.
Yes, that is a very interesting way to put it, definitely. And just on the topic of what you said, Kay, it matters a lot on who's teaching you. One of the things I've always lived by and has helped me is making sure your source of information is one of the best possible that you can get. And what I mean by that is, has anyone played the game Chinese Whispers? Is it Chinese Whispers? Chinese Whispers, right? It's the game where अगर आप 10 लोगों को खड़ा करें एक लाइन में, एक बंदे के कान में कुछ बोलते हैं, let's say the word hummus, and you ask the person to whisper into the next person's ear. By the time you come to the last person, you don't hear the word hummus being whispered. It's some other word, usually like banana or falafel or something else. And information works exactly like that. If you go to the source of such a topic and learn from them, your learning is way different than anyone else. And why I'm telling you this, for example, is if you've had a weakness in math, like I did, I'm an engineering student and I'm crap at math. Okay. I failed math courses. That's how bad I am. But the biggest significant change I did when I changed my mindset was, okay, fine, I'm failing math. How do I change my strategy in my work? And I'm going to be teaching you those mindsets as we go further, to understand how to be good at math. And I went online, and luckily we're in a digital age when I found courses online on one of the best mathematical professors you can find. Some of it, for example, is very freely available, like Khan Academy, but others are on Coursera and Udemy and other platforms. You find that courses online, they're pretty much free, and you take courses from some of the best instructors in the world. You're learning the way I started doing math after that versus before that. There's a huge gap because you're going to experts to learn, and luckily we're in a digital age where you can find experts on the tip of your fingers. So keep that in mind. Thank you for sharing, by the way. Afaf, or am I pronouncing it right? I hope I'm pronouncing it
Yes,
right.
it's a FAF.
All right, thank you so much for sharing. Cool, that's a good example. Does anyone have another example they want to share?
Dua said in the comments.
Yeah, hi Yaseen, how are you doing?
All good.
Interesting topic to talk about. What I feel like, what in my opinion, what I've been. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, mindset. It's like, people used to tell me like, like what your mindset is, your body works like that. And I think that is actually that is actually, I mean, that is has been I've seen that that's actually what happens, when if you have that mindset, what you want to do, like, I mean, as you've been discussing, if you have a positive mindset, and you're able to achieve more, the task you allot.
Things. Exactly. Yeah. If you change your mindset, something impossible becomes possible. And just to even mention on the point that Zubair is adding, so the COVID vaccine studies they're doing something called a placebo effect. If you all look it up, so it's the concept where people think or are thought to believe that, if I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing correctly, but they're made to believe that they've been given the vaccine, and a certain level of people recover from diseases just because they believe they've been given the medicine for it, even though they've not. And because it's the power of belief that even a lot of medical, like a lot of my friends are doctors, and even they're like, it's one of the most astonishing things about the human body, where a belief can even make people do something that's very impossible or less likely. somehow, because it just works like that, and that's how people work in general. So thank you again for sharing that. Let's go to the next slide, which is how would we define what growth mindset is. And before I get into what a growth mindset is, there are different kinds of mindsets. The one I'm going to be focusing on in this workshop for you guys is growth mindset, but there's also exponential mindset. There's the entrepreneurial mindset. There's the pivot mindset, I believe, as well. So these are people who think in a certain thought process, or people who certainly start thinking in such a way that eventually they start becoming those kind of personalities and would be good for fields. So growth mindset, as you can guess, is a very generic, not field-based mindset. And the definition, according to psychologist Carol Dweck in her book, is in a fixed mindset, people believe their basic qualities like their intelligence, talent, or simply fixed trait. They spend their time documenting their intelligence or talent instead of developing them. And they also believe that talent alone creates success without effort. So it's people who think, yeah, possibly nahi, it's something that can't happen at all. Or mujhse nahi hota, nahi hota, khair. And people who put a self-limiting belief, okay, whatever is my talent, my capacity is just here. Or you need talent as a prerequisite of achieving something, and don't understand that people who think work ethic as a different approach to it, for example. So people with a negative mindset or a fixed mindset would be thinking, okay, I can't do a certain level, or I can't do a certain level of mathematical problems, or I can't do medicine, or I can't do university, PhD, whatever it is. And then people with a growth mindset is like, okay, I know I can do it. The question is, how long will it take me to do it? And what will I need to do to achieve it? What will I need to give up? Or will I need to sacrifice? So for me, when I joined in a university in my first few years, it was a fixed mindset. I was like, mujhse engineering nahi hoti hai, time nahi waste karna mujhe apna. And I was constantly spending my time in university with that mindset. However, when I switched to a growth mindset, I was like, okay, so I know I can do it. It's doable. It's something everyone can do. Question is, what do I need to give up? How much time do I need to spend? And what can I do to ensure that I can get to the point that I need to graduate from university with my degree? And that shift caused a huge paradigm shift in my life at the university, because it made me think or remove my own limiting beliefs. Do any of you have an example just like that, where you were believing something, but the moment you switched it up and you tried something different, or you grew towards something, you were able to overcome it? I'm going to let you guys talk. Come on, guys, keep sharing. It's a safe space. Pusher's making sure of that. Nobody? Okay.
Can you repeat the question, Yaseen?
Sure. Can you give an example of a time where you had a fixed mindset on something, where you thought it was not doable, or you thought you aren't capable of doing something, but the moment you started thinking about it differently, that you were able to work towards that specific task, goal, or objective and achieve it? Or even if you didn't achieve it, you got very close to it. Was there like any instance that you can share?
Nawal has raised her hand, but then I'd love to share a story. Nawal can go first.
Thank you. The minds, I think for me, it was like, oh, working hard was the thing. It's like, I mean, I'd go to some specific thing and I'd be like, I can't be as good in any task. And that was like in every task generally, whether it was cooking, whether it was studying, whether it was, I also had that with reading when I didn't read. And then I see people reading so many books and being bookworms, and then I realized that maybe I could try. The main thing was to just give it a try, give it a shot, and I got so absorbed into it, and that is basically what I do now. I love it, and because I work toward it, it just expanded my mindset about how it can be beneficial and how I can work toward to new stuff.
Yeah, that's a very good story. I think we have other people as well. Thank you for sharing that, Nawal, if I'm correct.
I think Mariam raised her hand after that.
Yes, so for this very topic, I think I can give a lot of examples, but the one I really wanted to talk about was my mental health. So there were times that I believed that I will not be able to heal, I will not be able to be happy, but there were certain declines, there are, and I know there will be, but I somehow started the process of healing. I understood that it was slow, and I understood that it was self-paced. I have to control my mind and body with the process. But also, and I experienced and I learned a lot. I knew that I grew a better person. I knew I became a mature and a better version of myself. And I also became, let's just say, very experienced and very passionate about the subject. So I really learned a lot about it.
That's a really nice story, Mary. Thank you for sharing. And so on the topic of mental health as well, a lot of the things that we will do in the practical stage of the workshops have at least led me to have a very better mental health overall. So I hope it has the same effect on you as well as the others on practices that you can do. Anyone else? I saw a few hands being raised.
Hiba also has her hand raised.
Okay, go Hiba.
Yeah, so like my vision of like mindset is like, basically your mind actually does have power. Like I have seen it in like situations, for example, when I'm studying, and because I'm doing like research, and it's a lot of like work, and it's a lot of like patience, and you need all of that. So I feel that, there might be times when a person might want to give up, but like with that, you have to carry that growth mindset, or you need to have that, like from what I've learned, that you need to carry that mindset that, it's going to happen, you're going to get over it, and you can like do it. Like that's the thing you need to always tell yourself in the process of doing something, because I felt like those things have really helped me kind of achieve, or like make me want to achieve what I like want to do. So I guess like having growth mindset in that sense is very important, and even educating about it is also important. Yeah,
Definitely, yes. Okay, that was a really nice story. Thank you for sharing it. But one last person, and I think we'll move on.
I think Maha also has her hand raised.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have to give an advice to everyone. According to my experiences, reality can be altered at will. You are what you want to be. Once you believe, once you don't have any doubt, it will come to you when you least expect it.
That's a very nice thing to share. Thank you. Very good advice. Okay, Bashar, do you want to share your story? I'm dying to hear what you have to offer.
I have so many stories. But I think the one that's most relevant is that when I was in high school, it wasn't the traditional path was to go to a local university after you graduate, or if you're from a privileged background, you get to go to a privileged university. But for me, I just kind of set my mind first for a couple of years. I was like, I can't do this, but I just set my mind to the fact that I do want to get into a competitive program, and I do want to get a good scholarship because my family cannot afford to send me to college otherwise. And because I adopted that mindset, I was like, my last year of school, A levels, I can't do it in school because it wouldn't give me the time to do the research and put in the effort that would take to go to to apply through the Common App to US colleges. So I decided to just get out of school, just randomly pulled myself out, give the A levels privately, applied to a bunch of universities that are very competitive. I got rejected from all of them my first year. Applied to Harvard, Princeton, Dartmouth, Yale, and Amherst College. Rejected from all of them. Real low point. But then I still decided that I wanted to go ahead with it, and applied again the next year, and did manage to get in somewhere. I did manage to get that scholarship. So there's a bigger story there, and there's a lot more that happened in between. But I just wanted to kind of share that story with people to help you think about how you may be limiting yourself right now because you may not have considered a certain opportunities would work for you.
I agree. And I will say this, the amount of people that I knew that had the potential to go for some of the top universities and schools, but they didn't because they were like, yaar, main kaise ghusunga? And main normal banda hoon, came from a normal family. Why would I get in? And it goes both for girls and guys. because even in terms of financial resources, a lot of the times you do have these universities. If they want you, they will a lot of times offer you scholarship if you're not able to come. And I've seen so many talented individuals not even try. Like, it's different if you try and fail, but they didn't even try to go for these universities. So that's, I think, a very, very, very important point for all of you to remember as you're going to go into the university stage of your life, to try your luck, to do as much as you can. Jitna haath pair maar sakte hain aap log maro. Try your luck. Fir uske baad Allah pe chhod do. It's there. It's something you can't control after that point. But at least do your part. So cool. We'll move on. According to Dweck, people with fixed mindsets actually are less confident if they think they're dumb, or if they're less smarter than they are if they think they're smart. So surprisingly, you either have a lack of confidence in fixed mindset, or you're less smarter if you even are overconfident than you actually are. And smartness for me has always been a very relative term. I think people are smart in different ways. Not everyone's smart on the same scale. But that being said as well, I've always noticed the people with a fixed mindset always are like, they think their smartness is fixed because they've accumulated a certain knowledge and they stop, and that's it. And this is at a very young age, like 18, 20, 25. And they think that's it, they've got the expertise on the topic. But in reality, it's not how it works. You keep learning and growing in pretty much every part of your life as you grow. So with that being said, what an example of that would look like, and we've mentioned this, is, for example, I just can't learn algebra, or I would have passed the test if I had more time to study. These are some examples from her book that she mentioned. Now, coming to the main point, by the way, I love that someone scribbled on my screen. Whoever you are, I'm with you. This is personal now. So, right. There we go. Right. Strategy, and some of you might be familiar with the word naturally. It means to have a plan or a direction or implementation of something that matters. However, many people don't understand is most of us don't have a strategy of approaching something. And Bushra really hates the word, but it is my favorite word, Bushra, so let it be. That strategy is important to the extent that some of the most highest paying fields in the world, people think is things like engineering or medicine stuff. But for example, if you're a strategy consultant working with strategy firms in the world, your salary on average is pretty high. An example, in UAE, I know strategy consultants within even my own company started around 18,000, 20,000. If you go to bigger firms, which are strategy firms, you're talking about 25,000 dirhams. And these are people from very different backgrounds. You could come from medicine, engineering, life sciences. It really doesn't matter. Strategy is about not just where you come from in terms of your background, but how you have a thought process and thinking, planning, and executing things on a piece of paper first before you actually go and implement something. So, and the reason why strategy matters is a lot of us don't understand how to maneuver with strategy. And I'll sort of teach you on how or what level of strategy you need to maneuver in. So is it visible, by the way? Is the screen thingy messing it up? Or is it just visible on my side?
Yes,
It's
it
visible.
is.
Okay, cool. So the scenario, I want you all to try answering, what do you do if you are stuck in a locked room? You all have 10 to 15 seconds scenarios, and then start calling names, or ask Aisha to call out names of people who haven't talked to give me their answers. And yes, I will force you all. So, cool. Starting now, 1, 2, 3, 4, go.
Okay, I'm gonna start calling out names. Asma.
Okay. Asma, what's your answer?
I mean, I don't know what to say. I guess I'll find out in the first place. I'll question myself that why am I stuck in a locked room and what's the reason behind it? And then I'll find new ways that how can I make it useful? Like, obviously it's locked and then I cannot, like, I'm not that strong enough to kick it, I guess. I'll try maybe, but I know I won't be able to kick it open. So I'll try in the ways to make that time very productive and like do other things, I guess.
Right, so let's say you're stuck, but you want to get out. I think I should have made that more clear. Sorry. So Asma, let's make sure that you want to get out. Your parents are calling. So you have to get home somehow. What would you do? Same situation.
I'll look for clues, like look for the secret spots to get out.
Okay, so run me down a scenario. So give me, for example, would you go down the door first?
I think I would give it a try, but I think that would be the last thing because obviously the door would be locked. That's why it's known as a locked room. So
Okay.
I wouldn't be waste my time or trying to open the door or try kicking it. Instead,
Okay.
I just start looking for other things like what if it has a rooftop or a small window or a secret door behind it? Like we just like open up, like just touch and it just like opens up.
So let's say you go to the window. Window doesn't open. What do you do?
The window doesn't open, then I'll just see what if it's made of glass. I'll try breaking it.
Perfect. Okay, that's a good example. Anyone else? Let's go for other people. I'm sure you're gonna help me bully people, by the way. So
Okay, I can bully people later, but I do have a few people who've raised their hands. So Furqan.
Perfect.
Furqan, are you there? Okay, I don't think Furqan is connected. So Ehsan, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity. Actually, it depends upon the resources you have and the conditions you get.
It does, no doubt. But let's assume you're in a plain room with one table, one chair, one window, one door, and an AC. What do you? There's no right answer, by the way. So if anyone's trying to find a right answer, there's not. I'm just trying to see how you think about the situation. That's all. So go ahead.
I would try my best, whatever I can do. Like if I have no chance to escape, so I would utilize my time, the time which I have been given in that locked room, to help or to in order like to get a result or find some experiences which I have faced and to give it to someone else to my experiences, so that they also can get helped by the advices which I have been given and to understand the situation.
Okay, but walk me through. So for example, you're in the room, you're locked, you want to get out. There's a door, a window, AC, table, chair. What do you do? Tell me your actions. What's the first thing you would do? What's the second thing you would do? Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, actually, like if I have a door and a table and chair. So basically, the table and chairs are made up of wood and some metals like nails and hinges and stuff. So
Yeah,
I
sure,
would really try to break down and use the metal stuff in order to break the doors lock. Basically, it's not that durable. Like it depends.
Okay.
So
Let's
if
say
I
it doesn't
am,
open. What do you do then? What do you do then?
So if that's not successful, I would try like I have the table and chair. I would try to escape from the window, and it depends upon the window too, like with which material is it made of, right?
Mhm.
If it is glass, it is basically easy to get off, like glass and wood. But it is if it is made up of steel bars, then it would be hard, and there would be no opportunities left.
Sounds good. Okay, that's a good answer as well. What else? Who's next? I'll have one more person.
Isha's had her hand raised for a while.
Let's go, Isha.
Hi, everyone. How
Hello.
are you all?
All good. How are you, Isha?
So, if I'm locked in a room, like a locked room, the first thing like every person would do is try to escape. That's quite common sense, right?
Yeah, but how would you do that?
If there's a table and chair, I would just like, push it. Like, of course, you'll try to break out. And if I cannot do anything like to get out, I'm always carrying a mobile, and I'm always carrying a book in my mobile. I would just try to utilize my time reading or doing something else, like creative or being productive.
Not a bad one. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So here's the interesting thing. This has sort of been a metaphor, yeah, Urdu mein misal keh lo, of a sort, how people think in the world. And most of the people I've encountered, and these numbers are not accurate, there's no data about this, it's just my rough estimate. About 80% of the people I've met in my life, jo us room mein dal diye jate hain, and they're like, ओके हमें बाहर जाना है लेकिन हम कल जाएंगे या हम कभी और चले जाएंगे, कौन जाके दरवाजा खोलेगा, इतनी मेहनत कौन करेगा, या हमारे नसीब में ही नहीं दरवाजा खुलना, all those kind of situations. And that's how about 80% or so people would think about life in general. When there's opportunities on the other side of the door or progress or something different, a lot of the people I've met have this kind of a mindset, which is a fixed mindset, you can say, or this kind of a strategy. Okay, they don't even try to begin with. Then I would say about 15% or so after that 80%. So we're talking about now a total of 95%. That's not the same as the previous 80%. I'm confusing with the numbers, but either way. Then I would say the next 15% are people who are the kind of people that will go to the door. They know it's locked or they know the window might be locked. And they'll go to one of those and they'll keep like trying to pull it down. It's like, get me out of here. And then keep banging and they'll keep screaming on the door to have someone get them out. But eventually they're not going to get out and they're going to keep trying for hours and hours and hours. Eventually they're going to start blaming life. They're going to start blaming their own selves. They're going to lose their own self-confidence or self-esteem. And they go like, mere naseeb mein yahi hai, I tried my best, didn't work out. Yeah, why is God doing this to me? Or why is this happening to me? And why am I in the situation? And those mindsets, while there are situations where they are accurate, in this kind of situation, it usually doesn't help to be or thinking like that, because yes, you are in a locked room and you're locked, but however, the way you're going around about it is wrong. And of all the three people I've asked questions, all of you change your strategies the moment I said something doesn't work. You were like, darwaza nahi khula, I'll go for the window, or window nahi chal rahi, I'll do something else. But none of you told me at any point that you're going to sit down and wait in that room for someone to come and save you. And that's a lot what life requires from that top 5%. And usually these 5% people are people that are some of the most successful people I've met. If I was able to borrow it down to a kind of persona that people had, it was purely this, that they were working on finding a way out no matter what. They were working on making sure they would get out of that metaphorical room no matter what the price was. They would do whatever they could. And it's only these people that I've seen become very successful entrepreneurs, very successful CEOs or executives or co-founders, or successful in achieving their own goals. You don't need to be someone high up in corporate to be successful, someone who's raised a community platform, or someone like, for example, Pakistani, I think the biggest persona is Abdul Sattar Eidi, for example, someone who's achieved those things. He never stopped based on any limitation or boundary, even when people were against certain things that he did. So it's that belief that creates a very successful person in general. So I think the best way, there's a statement which I want you all to understand is, and get comfortable with, is failure. Failure is a part of this whole process. The first time that you went to the door and it didn't work, or it wasn't working out, or it wasn't opening, it was failure. It was sort of a failure. It was not you failing in general, but it was sort of a failure. And hamare maashre mein, failure is something that's not very fondly looked at. It's something people don't accept commonly. But I want you to get very, very, very comfortable with failure. Failure needs to become your bread and butter. The most significant growth I've had in my life was when I was like, okay, I failed, but it's okay. I learned something out of it and I learned to accept it. And it's very easy to say. I'm sure you've all seen this on your Instagram or Facebook post and motivation posts, whatever you follow, but it's a very, very different practice to accept, understand, and learn from. And the most important thing is to learn out of it. So understanding that it's a part of the process. And something I want you all to do is now share any instance that you can think of a situation where you failed multiple times, but were able to overcome something, or failure was preventing you, or the fear of failure was preventing you. So anything around the topic of failure that you think you guys want to share with us. Start with the bullying, Aisha. Here you go.
Okay.
Two participants raise their hand.
So do you want me to go with the people who raise their hands, or do you want me to
raise your hands? Yeah, whoever raises their hands, fine.
Okay, Nawal, do you want to go ahead?
Hello.
Hey, how are you, Nawal?
No, I actually had a question. I had my hand raised before. So, like you said, for failure, like you don't just like, go like, oh my God, I've failed. that's all it's gonna be. That's what it's gonna be. But like, even if you want to move on, doesn't the environment or where you are also have a lot of impact as to your mindset? I mean, like, if that little part of you does want to move on and learn from your failure, but then the people you're around keep pushing you down, like that could happen, right? Like they could go like, you fail, that's all you're gonna do. That's all that's gonna happen. You can go on and try again, but you're still gonna fail. So can that's like a factor. So how do you get out of that as well? Out of all that environment, out of the people, and just push on.
I don't know how. I don't think there's a single recipe that works for it. I'm just gonna tell you what worked
Yeah.
for me. What worked for me was being very, very comfortable with being known as someone not well reputed. Yeah, I'm sorry about the language, Busha, but Kellogg, even in my culture, थोड़ी सी कह लो बेगैरती होती है कि इंसान को मसला नहीं होता being shamed on something, if I'm making sense. कि आपको मसला नहीं होता कि लोग क्या कहेंगे या आपको वो कह लो कि थोड़ी बेशर्मी या जो भी कहते हैं उसको, I'm not sure what's the right term for it. And again, I'm not trying to be inappropriate. I apologize if someone's offended by that. But how you get comfortable is, to a certain extent, I'm not saying completely, but to a certain extent, you accept it कि लोग कहेंगे हमारे माशरे में है culture बोलने का और वो रहेगा, and you can't change that right away, at least not without changing yourself first. So first things first is I do always agree that there are toxic cultures, there are toxic environments that you go into, and anyone doubting that is just plainly blind. But there are people who've come out of it very strongly, and a lot of the strongest people I've met came out of some of the most toxic cultures. Like people who've been through miserable pasts tend to have created some of the best possible futures for themselves. Okay. And what that teaches me, or what that gives me hope, is that it's purely understanding or not caring about what people would think eventually, and focusing more on your learning process. And I will define what focus means as well in this workshop in the next few slides. And I want you to take that definition of focus on applying it and making sure you're creating that process and being comfortable with failure. And you can start on a small scale. Like I feel like har koi badi jump marne ki koshish karta hai. Everyone wants to go from A to Z within a second, but it takes steps, it takes time. Hamari generation ko aadat nahi hai, kyunki we're the on-demand generation. We click a button, we get food. We click a button, we like pictures. We click a button, we send information and details. So patience not really our strong suit, and these things require patience. Self-development requires patience. Healing requires patience. Like these things require patience. Am I answering your question correctly or not?
Yeah, I think that just covers up, because the main thing was like around people, for instance, it can be your own family, it can be your relatives, it can be the people you are growing up with. But like, it's like some people, they just give up. Like they get it just grows into their insecurity a lot more than their strength. These
It
kind of
does.
situations.
Yeah, I agree. And look, Dekho, so a very odd example, and I think a very typical example for at least some of the guys might go through this, definitely, and even the girls will go through in a different way. But with this example, it's me going to engineering, and a lot of my typical Desi culture, engineer banega ladka, blah, 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 kind of a situation. And to be very frank, a lot of people told me I couldn't do it because of my grades. In the first few semesters and years, it was like, if these are your grades and this is your background, how are you going to be able to do anything when you graduate? What kind of an employment opportunity are you going to be able to get? And I think one advantage I definitely had was I had a very supportive group of friends as well as parents. Like my dad was very supportive. So I think it was an exception that I was in. But even putting aside the pressure, it was how do I, at a certain point, you need to understand, are they right or are they wrong? And eventually, if you care, and that's the question stream, you start thinking, okay, maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. It doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. What matters is, in a growth mindset, you need to think in the way, okay, fine. Even if they're right, they're saying, okay, engineering is not my forte. Could be right. Question is, if I were to do it, how how much time, effort, and resources would it take from me? अगर मैं 1 घंटे पढ़ रहा हूँ मुझसे नहीं हो रहा है तो maybe 2 घंटे, 3 घंटे, 4 घंटे, 5 घंटे, ठीक है? And then you decide, okay, fine. If that's what it needs to do and I really want it, then I need to give that much time to that thing. I don't know of anyone who spent about 8 hours daily on something and not been able to achieve it, to be very frank. Okay. What it comes down to eventually is people not being able to execute it because they realize, even if they're very honest to themselves, they don't say it out loud, but they're honest to themselves unconsciously. They realize, isme 8 ghante lagenge, I'm not sure if I want to put in 8 hours. I maybe want to put in 4 hours or 3 hours. 8 hours is too much of my life. And they unconsciously decide, okay, this is not something they want to do. And that is something I always tell people, there is a price to pay. Question is, are you okay with paying the price to prove people wrong? And that is the question you should be thinking about. Okay, am I, even let's say if engineering is not for me, I can do the degree. Question is, do I want to pay the price of working 8 hours on a daily basis to execute what I want? Or do I want a more relaxed career life and I want to go for something that's more easier to me and more natural to me? And that's okay, that's your choice, but you need to live with that choice. Okay? And that's what being an adult becomes. It's not about people are putting me down. Those are things that will always be around you. Even when you come into the work life, there are people professionally who have a very strong incentive of putting you down. Okay? They want you to not do well because you've not seen anything bad in the world like office politics. Okay? Because people have a financially and future-based benefit of putting you down. Okay? They go up the ladder if they put you down. Not in all companies, naturally, just a lot of companies, but it is there. So that's, I think, something you, or the way I would answer it, okay, it is coming down to you understanding what is required. Am I willing to sacrifice it? And if you are, then you failing or not failing doesn't matter. It's just go ahead with it. Am I still answering the question or am I still off?
Can I add something to that, Yaseen?
Yeah, go for it.
I think that's all very, very true. And you're totally right when you say that when people put their mind to doing something, anyone that I've met that has achieved anything is just put their time into it. But also sometimes there's privilege. Sometimes there are other things that are giving you a push, but that does not mean that you have to be realistic about your situation, understand what's holding you back. And so the one thing I want to add to that is, while at the same time you're planning on what you can do, there are always environmental factors that are pushing you back. So do plan to how you can push back against those environmental factors. If you need to talk to your parents, if you need to develop a kind of relationship, are there mentors you can get involved? Are there ways you can improve your relationship with your parents? I myself have immensely transformed my relationship with my family because there was this mutual realization that we need to get to a healthier place, right? But beyond that, I also just want to emphasize finding mentors and looking for help. Like if you know that you need certain kinds of support, knowing what you need, honestly, is a key thing here, I think. And then you don't have to necessarily do it alone. In fact, you never have to do it alone. You can always find people to support you.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely, that was a very good point. Thank you, Bashar. Cool. With that, I'm just going to go on to the next one. A lot of the failure concept, I think we can skip that one. This is my favorite resource, or sorry, my favorite quote, which is why people think they fail. And a lot of the times they think it's because they don't have the money or the resources and the things that you've mentioned. But eventually what it comes down to is not about it's not about having resources, but rather being resourceful themselves. Or the way this says is lack of resourcefulness. What that means is not everyone can have the resources, but what everyone can have is the ability to get those resources when they need it. So I can't not have money, but I can have the ability to make money. I can't have the time to do certain tasks, but I can have the time to delegate those tasks and make more time for myself, and I can learn that. Or I can't have, for example, if it takes me 5 hours to cycle somewhere, I can do it over a consistent time, and I can start doing it instead of 5 hours, it'll become 4 hours or 3 hours. Or if it's reading a book, you start with 1 book a month, eventually you become so good and used to it that you start reducing that time. So eventually, actually, not even that is a good example. Funding is a good example. Energy. So people think energy is something that I have so much things going on, it's draining my energy. But if you're resourceful and you know how to get yourself more energized and get yourself more powered up for certain things, you'll find a way to get that energy. If you want to get people to do things that you want them to do, it's manipulating and understanding your own emotions and conveying them into those people and showing them how much you genuinely care. And if you're actually able to use that, it's your resourcefulness and how you're able to manage things. So again, it's not about resources, time, energy, money, value. It's about how resourceful you are. How can you get these resources even when you don't have them? And that is something that's very important for a lot of people in being successful, because many people aren't always born with a silver spoon, especially when they're trying to do something. There's no doubt that there are people that are privileged and successful, but if you're never picking up the ability to be resourceful, then there will be times that you will be limited by your resources that you've had, which is always a limit to it, right? Even if you're born with $100 million, it's not like you have $1 billion. You still have $100 million. But if you're resourceful, you can eventually learn to turn that 1 million to 100 million to from 100 million to 1 billion. And that's a very important trait to pick up. Understanding to get things even when you don't have them. Not steal, not be attacking someone, but ability to attract that or make it through means of time and effort. And I think this is my most favorite one in a way, I guess, because it's the most widespread I've seen amongst our generation and people around me till this date. And I think it even impacts a lot to your relationships and the topics that Bushra was discussing. So who here wants to be rich in the future? Anyone wants to raise their hand now? किसी को पैसे नहीं बनाने seriously? Okay. Who's talking? Sorry.
I think there are other things we can go after as well, but sure, okay.
I'm just saying, who here wants to be rich in the future? Can I have someone who will speak up? Who's talking? Sorry.
Abdullah.
Hey, Abdullah. Sorry. So you want to be rich, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So if I send you 5 dirhams from now,
Okay.
would you be happy?
No.
Why not? You're richer than a minute ago, right? Like technically, you don't have 5 dirhams a minute ago, but now you will have 5 dirhams. Why is that not making
for like every single day we send.
See, now you change your ask. So, and thank you, Abdullah. That was a good example. Specificity is very important in defining who you are and what you want. The fact that he said he wants to be rich and he said yes to it, but he wasn't very specific to how much, to what extent, to what, or what does he want to be rich in, to be more specific. So I agree with you. For sure. Sorry, go ahead. You were saying something?
A billionaire.
Yeah, billionaire, for example. Fine. Put a number and you can keep it to yourself. And that's a number, let's say, you want to make. Even by the way, billionaire is sort of vague at this point. Like we understand you want to hit 1 billion above, but what exactly does that mean? So in terms of specificity, what I mean is if you can create a very specific goal or a target of what and how you want to achieve something and build yourself to get to that point and keep reminding yourself every single time. So an example is in my wallet, keep a note of a certain amount of money I want to hit at a certain age. And it's just something I want to completely do so because, you know what, I want to try my luck. I have no issues if I don't hit that number, but I know what the number is. Whenever I'm thinking of financial resources or assets or even saving money, I know exactly how much I need to be going about because I'm thinking that specific number. And I'm not saying that's what my happiness is. That's just a hobby. It's not what I want. In terms of my own happiness metrics, it's something very different, as Bushra pointed out. But what it's more about is how are you going to be more specific? Because many people give very vague results and you get vague answers. And I think that's something taught by Tony Robbins as well. The more vague you are, the more vague are your chances of achieving something. When you say, I'll pass a course, you're saying, हाँ मैं जितने passing grade चाहिए होते हैं उतना कर लूँगा, but you never specify exactly what you want. However, you will see often the people who get A's in a course or a subject, you'll see most likely they've been aiming for that A. Sometimes even the A minuses or B's are the people that were aiming for A but couldn't get to it. But at least they tried and they were specific that they wanted that goal. You barely ever get to that specific point or a goal unless you don't very specifically define it. And that's very important, even in defining yourself. So don't be vague in life. And if you're ever getting vague results, ask yourself, am I being very vague with my requests or my desires? Right, this is my favorite one. Okay, so everyone can do this by themselves. Aisha, if you can see their faces, just see if they're doing it. If not, it's fine. I want you all to look around in your room, wherever you're sitting, for a specific color. Okay, now I'm gonna ask for 2 volunteers. Actually, I'll just take one. One's enough for this. So I'm gonna have 1 volunteer, and Aisha, you get to pick that person again, or if anyone wants to raise their hand, feel free. To volunteer for this exercise.
Me.
Okay, I think I'm gonna pick Huda because she wanted to participate earlier.
Okay, let's go. Huda, are you there?
Can you guys listen?
Yes. Hi, Huda. Okay, perfect. Okay, so here's what's going to happen, and make sure, let me know if you understand me clearly. You're going to look around in the room for a specific color. Okay, I'm going to tell you what that color is.
Color in mind.
You're going to have 5 seconds, look for all the objects in your room or wherever you're sitting to find objects of that specific color. When I say 5, you close your eyes, and then I'm going to ask you to tell me those objects off the top of your head. Clear?
Okay.
Cool. So again, just to make sure, I'm going to give you a specific color. You need to spot all the objects around you of that color. Get back to me after 5 seconds and let me know when I ask you for the color. Give me all the objects you know of that color. Awesome.
Sure.
If you can keep your camera on by any chance.
Yeah. Okay.
Aisha, just make sure her eyes are closed when we ask her in the end.
Sure. Fine.
Cool. Here we go. So let's say the color we go for is blue. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
What color?
Blue.
Blue.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. Close your eyes.
Fine.
All right. Now I want you to tell me everything that's red in your room.
My bed sheet, my curtains.
That's
clock.
red.
Yeah, red.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay. So if you open your eyes, it's not as easy as it was to probably tell me the items that were blue. If I'm guessing you went 5 and above with your items.
Yeah, I did.
Right. And well, why do you think the difference was within going for something that was red versus that you're going for something blue?
I think I focused more on the blue but I still know my room, so.
Yeah. So because you're in a comfortable environment, you were able to remember the things. However, if you were to go in a new place like random lounge or a restaurant, it'll be less likely that you'll be able to focus on something unless you're looking for it. And surprisingly, this is how it is when it comes to life in general. When you're focusing on a specific thing, you start seeing it. So for 5 seconds there, she was an expert on everything blue in her room. I would have asked her and she would have noticed, even though I'm sure she's been going into her room for a long while. But the fact that she entered into her room and she was like looking around specifically for items that were blue, she's more prominently going to remember them as she enters them this time onwards. And I'm sure previously when you entered the room, you never bothered in observing what was red, what was blue. You just went into your room and you just went to your favorite item and started interacting with that. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Right. So that's sort of how important focus is. And that's why it's one of my most favorite things to exercise whenever I'm practicing a mindset, because it is the amount of opportunities you get by focusing and clarifying on what you want. And you start automatically seeing it when you enter places or conversations or you enter discussions or your network. And you start seeing it right there. And I'll give you an example. This very stupid example, but it works. There is a coach, a mindset development coach, who teaches people to find their relationship partners by writing their list down of what kind of a husband or wife they're looking for, and makes them read that list every morning for about 15 to 20 days. And within 15 to 20 days, most of those people went out and found their partner, surprisingly. It was a very interesting thing. And it's based on the fact that when you know exactly what you want and you start going out in the world, you start noticing those exact things. It's because you've specified it for yourself, that's able to actually happen, and you're able to see it instead of the whole world as you should see it. Now you're able to see the red and the blue and whatever else you're trying to find. So it's a very interesting thing on how the mind works. And this is a part in your brain, by the way. It's called the RAS, Reticulating Articular System. I think if you have Google on, just write RAS brain. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's RAS brain. And you'll see that organ kind of helps you identify these details, because when you give the RAS what you're looking for, it helps you find it. And this works, by the way, even with cars. If you ever notice a car model, before you couldn't notice it, but now it's everywhere you see. So it's something you're going on and on about. So let me just confirm. Right, this is a saying I live by a lot, which is what you focus on expands. As in, just maybe aapka dhyan jate rahega. It's something you will find a lot more information, a lot more details, and you will find more and more and more about that topic. So same thing with opportunities in myself. Whenever I was looking for specific areas and opportunities, like things like innovation or things like artificial intelligence, whenever I started focusing on those topics, spent my time on it, eventually with time, I started expanding more and more into it. And I was able to get to that point where more and more knowledge started coming towards me, more people started networking for it. And eventually with time, you started getting, people started knowing you for that specific topic. And that's why focus is a very nice and important trait for you to develop when you do your mindset. How am I on time? Is it? Oh crap, I'm really over time. Final theory, emotional and mental states. I think we've discussed this already as well. So emotional and mental states are things like happiness, anger, depression, anxiety, things like that. And a question to ask yourself is, do you think if there was a moment, if you were angry and you tried solving a problem, versus if there was a time where you were happy and calm and you were trying to solve a problem? I'm sure all of you must have felt a difference in your states. If anyone has something to share here, feel free. If not, it's fine. Afaf, I think you have something to say. You raised your hand.
Yes, I do.
Sure,
So there isn't a specific moment in which I was angry and was trying to solve problems, but in general, I could say that when we are angry and we are kept to solve any problem, any problem, and our mind at that time is like a whole jungle, and we can't seem to find the specific thing that we want, the way that we're going to solve that problem. But on the other hand, when we're happy or when we're calm, our mind is very clear, and we can easily go to the path on what we want to solve, and we can easily see the answer.
Yeah, true. That's exactly what it is. And it's when your mind is more clear and lighter that you can actually solve problems better. So now the question comes in, and a lot of people who work on growth mindsets is, how do you put yourself in this emotional and mental state? And one of the things I do as well is, first thing in the morning, I spend 5, 10, 15 minutes to put myself in that state. I've had a bad day, I'm not doing well, whatever it is put myself in that emotional and mental state where I can solve any problem that comes to me. And the more and more you can successfully enter into that mental state, the better and better you become at solving any problems that you have. Okay, so with that, we finished the first half, but I'll go faster on the second half. So if you have a pen and pencil and get a piece of paper or anything you want to keep in your wallet or cupboard or something, go for it. But I also understand we're doing this digitally. So if you want to take notes and put it somewhere that you will definitely see it, like your mobile phone or something, go ahead. So what I want you to do is sort of start taking control of your state and mindset through content first. So how does one take control of that? So I want everyone to take out their phones. If you're already on your phone, then just close the tab. And before we do, though, let me just tell you what to do. which is first thing is there's a simple law. What you input is what you get out. It's a simple law of universe and physics, mechanics, pretty much. Okay, input is equivalent to output, unless naturally there's loss of energy and other things, etc. But putting that aside, what I mean to say is, okay, whatever information and content you feed yourself is exactly what you will output. And I'll give you an example. So here's an exercise, and this is what we're all going to do. Track your past 24 hours and ask yourself how much time you spent on social media platforms. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter. I'm not a cool kid, neither am I anywhere close to being young. So if there's any platform I've missed that you spend your time on, add that into there as well. So take a second. Can anyone volunteer and can just tell me random hours? If you have an iPhone, it actually gives you the hours as well. So you don't even have to track it. Go for it, Isha.
Can I pick on people if Isha's not?
Yeah, go for it. Anyone who's not spoken is perfectly.
Yeah, especially people without the cameras on. So Safia, are you there?
Ooh, we're going for cameras, people. Yes.
Okay. Safia? Okay, what about Iman? Iman Yunus?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Do you want to answer?
Yes, it was 5 to 6 hours probably.
Yeah, 5 to 6 hours. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's an amount of time that you spent on social media, right? Now, yes. You don't need to say this. If you're comfortable sharing, go for it. But open any of those platforms that you commonly visit and just describe the first 5 things that show up. If you don't want to say it, it's fine. But if you can.
No, it's fine. I usually visit Wattpad because I like to write. And the first things I usually go is see my account, or I go on the edit story and then either write whichever I'm working on or the ones in my drafts.
No, I think Wattpad is a different platform. We're talking about social media platforms.
It's just a writing and reading platform mainly.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think that's okay. But we're talking about Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat.
Oh yeah, Instagram. I do use Instagram. So it's just the main feed. I just scroll through it at times, and there's like K-pop stuff mainly.
Okay, so K-pop, so things like that. And that's commonly the thing. And I'm sure any of you on mute or not sharing a video can do the same thing. You can go and observe your top 5 news feed on any of your platforms and ask yourself this question. Are any of those adding any value to your life or anything that you want to achieve? And
okay, I thought it was a question. Sorry.
That's fine. Don't worry about it.
I think these memes are adding incredible value to my life. So.
Okay. But the point is, look, most of the time that you go through these platforms and you start filtering out anything that you're putting in subconsciously into your mind through social media, it's impressive how much you regain your mental health just by reducing the content and the other crap that you consume subconsciously into your mind. And if you don't believe me, you can try this for the next 10, 15 days. Stop following pages on Instagram or any other platform that don't add any value to you or that you have no interest in following, that are nothing but pure crap in your mind. And see if that makes a difference in your happiness over the next 10, 15 days. Keep a track of your friends, keep a track of family, whatever else you find important. I follow some organizations and corporations and keep up to date with that. But it's fine. Outside of those things that really don't make a difference in your life. Mariam, raise your hand.
So the question that you asked, I actually did not talk about it because I had a relapse in this past week. So whenever I have like a drawback or a relapse, I tend to take a break from social media, or I push off like everything. So I just focus on myself for a while.
Yeah.
Or the only reason I would open social media would be to contact someone, or I would go through something that would be helpful, maybe, read affirmations or stuff like that, something that would be helpful. So the point is that whenever you feel something that is toxic for you, you have to take a break from that. You have to put it aside and focus on yourself for a while.
Exactly. And surprisingly, if any of you want to develop yourself as well, just spending time reading things like I picked up on future technologies just by following certain Instagram pages. And subconsciously over the next 2 years, I understand more about the topic and I can have conversations with C-level executives in technology and hold my ground. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to be able to match them with their experience, but definitely understand the content. And that's enough for someone like me who's only had 1 year of corporate experience versus people who had 20 years of experience. And we're able to have the same level of discussion and concept. So it's amazing on how, if you utilize social media or any other way you consume content, and how fast, even though if you're taking small doses, but how fast over a year or two that you start seeing a difference. And I think, just chop this up, a few words to live by. This is from Jim Rohn, which is every day stand guard at the door of your mind and protect all the information that's coming in, and ask yourself, is this information adding value to me or not? If not, then discard it, throw it out of your brain. That's the best advice I can give you in terms of taking an action on controlling your mindset through content. Now, through movement, and this is my favorite part, can anyone answer this question? If we don't get a volunteer, I'm going to make Aisha do her thing. Great, we've got 2 participants. Who's it?
Iman raised your hand.
Go for it, Iman.
Restart my phone.
Okay, how'd you restart your phone?
With the lock screen button, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So, right, you have the lock screen buttons. For those of you who don't know, just to make sure, it's like if your phone's not working, you have these buttons here and here that you kind of use to start it up. Now, so if you take this metaphor and think of your brain as a software and you feel mentally stuck, what would be the hardware that you use to restart your brain? Because on the mobile, it's those buttons. When your software is stuck, you use the hardware to restart it. How can you do that in the human body? And I think the best way is using your physical movements to be able to produce a certain stance. So an example, and those of you who are off with cameras as well should do this, is stand up and do the Superman pose if you're a guy, and if you're a girl, Wonder Woman pose. If you want to switch it up, it's up to you. You're welcome to do that. But for 2 minutes, I want you all to stand up. And for example, with the Superman pose, it's like this. And the Wonder Woman pose, I'm not sure exactly what it's like. You might have to Google it, but I think it's somewhere along the lines of this. And just stand in that for 2 minutes. Surprisingly, if you stand up, and I'll do it with you just for the sake of it. I'm going to stand up awkwardly, but okay. Surprisingly, for 2 minutes, when you stand up like that, your human body feels weird. You're laughing, you're like, okay, why am I doing this? But while you're doing this, your serotonin level and your body posture decreases serotonin, sorry, cortisol, and endorphins are being released. Endorphins are the drug that kind of in your brain makes you happy, right? And cortisol going down is the stress hormone, and your perception of pain or anything else goes down, including your confidence level. When you're just putting your chest out and you're getting into that pose of thinking as if you're Superman or Wonder Woman, as an example, or any other person or hero that you follow, and just following that structure. And for those of you on why endorphins matter, it's part of the morphine family. It's a drug your brain produces. So you literally don't have to take drugs. Your body produces it and it makes you really happy. And it's the same thing you get from doing exercises, that you can just stand, I guess, for 2 minutes and get endorphins in your body up and running. So the amount of difference you can make in your mind if you're stuck mentally is literally by going through some very rigorous forms of exercises. And when I was saying, okay, I wake up in the morning, get myself in a mental state, what I do usually is 5-10 minutes. Sadly, it's just 5-10 minutes because of my work hours, but 5-10 minutes of stretching, doing some exercises to get myself in that physical movement that then gets me into my mental state that then eventually I use to solve problems or deal with the rest of my day. Whenever I've not done that, I'm a very cranky person. You do not want to be around me. I'm like the worst person to work with that day, or I'm very unproductive, because it's such a big difference on being in that mental state again and again, that it makes a huge difference in your life. So controlling yourself through your habits. There's a saying which is, tell me your 24 hours and I will tell you your future. Okay, how you spend your 24 hours, if you're spending about 5, 8, 12, 15 hours doing something unproductive, that's bad for you. If you're spending about 1 or 2 hours studying only, that's might be enough, might not be enough, depends on you, but usually it's not, especially during exam times. So managing yourself, creating habits and ritual that get you into that mental and emotional state, controlling your social media content, things like that. These are things that will eventually get you to control it. And something people don't get, 9 to 5 is a very normal thing. I've heard so many millennials and younger people talk about, well, I don't want a 9 to 5 job. I want to be something, more unique or more different. But what people don't get is most of the times, if you want to make more money or add more value, you end up working 9 to 9 p.m. or if not 9 to 12 p.m. And I've done that as well. I still do that. I work till 1 a.m., 2 a.m.s sometimes. Bashir knows this is a fact. And yeah, it adds more. Definitely, I'm getting more value out of it, but I'm also putting in more hours.
Okay,
so,
I know this because I have to chase you up at 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. to get stuff from you.
You still get stuff at 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. from me, okay? So yes, you know this. But so controlling yourself through those habits, and yeah, so it's not that, just to clear it up, I'm not against any time you spend recovering through social activities, hanging out, but I think the key term is an adequate amount. So you don't need to be going out every day of the week, but you do need to make sure you're following all your tasks, your time, and everything else you're doing. So make sure you're spending the right amount and managing and balancing it well. Right, so before we conclude, I want you all to decide. And why I want you to use the word decide is used here is I want you to make a very specific commitment that you say, this is it. I've decided this is my standard that I will live by, and I will achieve the specific goal for myself. And I want you to write this statement on your mobile phone or any digital device that you often visit, can access it, or if you want to put it on a piece of paper and keep it somewhere where you can see it or read it, I want you to fill out this statement and write something for yourself. That in the next certain months, could be 5, 10, 15, 12, 28, I will achieve whatever you'd like by a certain percentage, that this much. And if I fail to do so, I will repeat this process until I achieve my goal. And what that means is you're going to go on this track, and even if you don't get what you want, let's say, for example, if you want to, for example, mine is losing weight by 12 months. And if I don't do it within 12 months, by whatever percentage I decide I want to lose weight, if I don't get it, it's fine. I'm going to add again a further 12 months to myself to get to that point. And I'm sure I'm not going to need more than 12 months, but even if I did, it'll be another month or two. But just in case, I'm going to give myself the same 12 months again. So the point is, it doesn't matter how long it takes, but it does matter that you do keep at it and you keep repeating the process of committing yourself to that amount, and eventually you start closing the gap. So for example, if it took you 13 to 14 months to reach the goal, the next time you do it, or something similar, it takes you 8 or 9 months, and eventually with time you get better and better at it because you get more control over it. And I think with that, so yeah, make sure you set a specific deadline and specific purpose. Oh, right, this is a very important part. Pick the right strategy. We've discussed about strategy. It's a very important thing. And the two kind of strategies I can recommend is, number one, what Bashar was discussing as well with mentors, is follow someone's footsteps who's already succeeded. So you don't need to go creating the formula again. You can go do it with someone who's already done it and ask them how they did it and follow their footsteps. It is as simple as that. And you can find all these kind of people online available reaching out to you. I think me and Bush are currently working with an organization that's based out of North America, and people there are very open to mentoring and reaching out to us. They're halfway across the world. We've never met them face to face, but they're helping us out. So it's literally amazing how through technology you can access resources, people, and manage your time so well that not taking advantage of it is just like wasting your time and effort. So that's one way of approaching it. But the second way, and this is, I would say, a more entrepreneurial route, is the trial and error, which is what we discussed in our strategy exercise of keep trying certain things, and whatever is working, keep paying more attention to it, and whatever is not working, understand why this strategy is not working. And just like how all of you change your strategy the moment something wasn't working, I want you all to start changing the strategy whenever something's not working in this scenario as well. So that's the conclusion. Control your thoughts, build a growth mindset, control your emotional states and mental states, and pick your strategy wisely. And you guys made it. Congratulations. Worst 1 hour and a half of your life, but you made it through. Questions? Let's open up the floor. Do we have time, Risha?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have to stay for a Zoom photo, but yeah.
Oh, okay, sure. Let's go. Who do we have questions from?
Asma's hand has been raised for a while. Asma, do you have a question?
No. I actually forgot to lower my hand. I'm sorry.
Well, मैंने बड़ा अच्छा समझाया सबको समझ आ गई. Yeah. Farhad, do you have any questions? No. Okay.
Mariam has a question.
Perfect mindset. I'd want to know what people wrote down as their statement.
Yeah. If anyone's okay with sharing their statement, I'm not sure if you guys are done with it. Is anyone done with their statement? Zubair?
Isha, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Like, I want to talk about something like I'm stuck in something like about my future plans, like my profession, what I want to take. Like, from childhood, I have been interested in cooking, and now I'm an expert in cooking. And my family wants me to take culinary as my profession. I love culinary. I can do anything for like cook, but that's not what I want to do. And I'm literally stuck between my family and my personal mindset.
Okay, that's not like, yeah, that's more of a different issue. But what do you want to be doing?
I don't know. I'm like every night before I go to sleep, I'm just asking myself like what I want to do, like literally what I want to do. But when I search up on culinary, what like all the management courses, like I'm like, I can succeed, but that's not what I want to do. I'm not really passionate about taking it as a profession.
Okay, and just to add on that, sorry if I'm interrupting something, but I think Bashir and Aisha might be able to add context to it as well. Doing something in your career that you don't enjoy doing is a recipe for disaster. This is coming from a kid who went to engineering, who should not have gone to engineering, but did. I don't do anything that's related to coding. I advise people on technology-based or digital-based instruction. So I took the part out of technology that I like and I mixed it with what I would like to be doing. But the point is, if you're going to be successful at something, you're going to have to spend miserable hours doing it, no matter what someone else has told you. If you want to start your own company, or if you want to do a PhD, or if you want to be an executive or something, you will have to spend at least 10, 12, 13 hours a day doing that day in and day out. And if you don't enjoy it, you will become miserable. You will blame every person in your life who put you in this field and curse them, even if it's a family. And that's why I'm a very strong advocate of doing your best in coming to a mutual understanding with your family and what you would be doing that you would enjoy. And you might even go with the idea, okay, it's okay, I might enjoy this, and you get into university, and by third year, you're like, you know what, I don't enjoy it, and that's okay. Go through with it, because surprisingly, people think even if they graduate, they can't maneuver fields, and that's not true. A lot of the times, if you pick up the fields and the skills, you can definitely move around certain fields. There are exceptions, I will agree. Okay, for example, it's not easy to be a finance graduate and work as a mechanical engineer. But vice versa has happened, and both, it depends on the kind of company you go into. So really, it's a different thing. I think there's a question in the chat.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to add something to that. Actually, go first.
Oh, I was just going to read the question in the chat.
No, okay.
Let me just go. I think we all need a massive reality check, and our parents as well, that in today's world, like, we can have 2 to 3 careers in our lifetime minimum, and even beyond that. So you could try something today and completely change it tomorrow. You might have to. This is coming from anyone here who knows me, knows that I've been in a massive career crisis for a couple of years, and I'm trying to get out of it because I was doing something that was so miserable and that I didn't even want to tell people I was doing it. So.
Yeah,
and that happens. It's okay. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying we've had this conversation, Bushra and I as well. I think everyone at this stage of our lives, we're talking about, you know, how you can have multiple interests and multiple careers, and you have to do that trial and error thing. So we've got a question from Hiba. I'll come to Mariam and Asma as well. Hiba's asking, how can we have a good focus or stay focused on a certain thing that you want to achieve, even during the time when a person may feel low?
Look, first thing is people assume that willpower has anything to do with that equation. So just to clarify, it doesn't. Willpower is complete and utter lie that it's been told to you. In fact, if you can repeat it after me while I'm saying it, even if you're on mute, it's okay. But just say this to yourself for my own satisfaction. Willpower is a lie. Okay, sorry, no, motivation is a lie. Just say that to yourself, okay? And what really matters is setting up your habits. Your habits will define you. Your habits are the things that lead you into a consistent thing. So an example, I think all of you can agree, none of you can go to gym for 24 hours straight and lose weight and come out of the gym. In fact, you might come out more damaged if you do. If you think you can do it, please do go ahead and do it. I want to see a recording and how you come out of it. But I doubt you can manage 24 hours of gymming. Okay? It's not going to be possible. But if you spread that 24 hours throughout a month and do it across a month, and each hour across a month, you will see a difference, surprisingly. So what the key ingredient is, it really matters on how consistent you are. Okay, so to create the focus level you want, you need to consistently practice it every single day for about a month or so. It takes about 30 days to form a habit, surprisingly. And maybe a side off religious topic I'm not going to get into, but even the concept of Ramadan is coming from the fact that the reason why it's 30 days is the kind of Muslim or person you become in those 30 days, you might maintain the habits and move forward with it. And that's also the philosophy behind of maintaining rituals for more than a month or so. So practicing something for more than a month maintains that habit. Once you can keep that habit, then you can start expanding and growing it again and again. The first month's focus, do it, even if it's 5-10 minutes, but do it as much as you can. Make sure you show up and you do it. After the month, you start focusing on expansion. So cover your basics. After day 30, start growing your basics. Does that answer your question? Who was the question from? Hiba, right?
Yeah, Hiba.
One thing, Zahid, do you want to talk about your whiteboard or you want to leave it out?
No, I actually want to talk about it.
Okay, great.
I do have a whiteboard at home, and I write down very simple things on it that I want to develop a habit of, and I practice them and I track them. So I start by tracking them just to know if I'm actually doing them or not. And eventually I see those red cross turning into green ticks, and things on that whiteboard are as simple as praying, brushing my teeth twice, drinking enough water. And that's how and I have noticed that now with this whiteboard, I'm actually removing old things and adding new things, because after a certain period of time, I actually develop a habit and I do that activity without actually, tracking, without actually, having it on a whiteboard as a reminder. So I absolutely agree with what Muhammad Yaseen said, that, building habit is the only way of going forward.
That is actually a very good way of doing it. Honestly, man, dude, impressive. Like, even I'm not that good at executing it that way. So, respect.
And if someone wants to actually see it, so see, this is the whiteboard.
That is a very nice way, by the way.
All the green and red ticks of, very simple things that you want to do and develop a habit of.
You know what? I'm going to actually try that. Zahid, thank you for that. I'm actually going to do that in my office. That's a good one.
Wow, you inspired the workshop lead. Wait, so who was speaking?
I was just going to say Mariam and Asma have had their hands up. So Mariam, do you want to go ahead?
So I have two questions. I'll go for the first one first. So the first one was that, what if you have more than multiple goals. How do you start, and how do you, because it gets complicated and confusing, and you know that you have more than multiple goals. So how do you focus or break down things into different small goals and achieve them?
So I'm going to give a very bad example, but I think it applies through my personal life. So my goal since graduating from university in 2019 has been to lose weight. It's also been to establish my career. It's also been to, I memorized the Quran, so I'm trying to revise it again. Because जब से engineering पढ़ी है, school में भी गया हूँ, A levels के बाद I haven't touched it. So I'm also currently my Qari is pinging me on WhatsApp. Are you coming for a class? So, I'm also doing those things, and like there's so many things that I wanted to do, but eventually after 3 months of trying to do that all within the first 3 months of graduating and being employed, I crashed. And I asked myself, okay, let me prioritize on what's the most urgent thing. What is the thing that I cannot risk losing, and prioritize based on के पहली चीज क्या strategically जरूरत है. It's not compromisable. I can't not achieve it. And the first thing was definitely employability. I could not be employed. So I needed to make sure I spent a lot of my time, and even sometimes compromising my health. I wouldn't advise that, but it was my choice to make over a period of the COVID time to make sure I'm available for my firm and showing I'm with them during these times and executing things with them, and even with the other things that I wanted to initiate. Second were things like self-fulfillment work, the things that me and Busha work on the side, as well as initiatives with my own boss, initiating that, my own personal health. Now I'm back to going and focusing on my health with my food, my diet, my working out, and everything else. And I'm prioritizing it more in that structure and putting in things here and there. And you eventually get better at it. But my main thing I would say is prioritize on what is urgent, needs to happen right away, and is critical, is important to your basic survival or foundation, something moving forward. I hope that answers your question. Does it?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. So the other question is, building habits is a challenge. Of course it is. Building good habits, it's a challenge. You break off from that habit in between, and it's a long journey. But how do you break off a toxic habit?
Spot on. I like that question. So I literally just did that 3 weeks ago. I broke a very toxic habit of mine. I'm not going to get into details. Actually, I'll give you a very different example. 27 September 2015 was the last time I drank any soda. I'm sorry if all of my problems seem like weight related. They're not. It's just the examples I can think of right now. I do not have a weight crisis going on. But 2015, 27 September, I remember the date as well, was the last time I had any kind of soda because it was impacting my health. And I decided, okay, this will be my standard of life. For 30 days, I will not drink soda. Then the challenge came 2 weeks later. I was like, oh crap, I need something to drink. I'm out with friends. I want to grab something to drink. Pyas lag rahi, kuch to pee loon. Dil cha raha tha, fridge mein dekh rahi thi. The guy was like, sir, kuch nahi hai restaurant mein, sir soda hai. And I was like about to tell myself, yaar, pee leta hu, ek hi to hai, kuch masla nahi hai. And then I remembered one of my favorite books, and look it up. It's from Clayton Christensen from Harvard Business School. It's How Will You Measure Your Life? Kuch nahi, 40 page itni choti kitab hai. Do read it if you get the time. It's one of my favorite books. And he said, if you want to do something, you do it 100%. The moment you compromise on it, even 1%, you lose it. That 1% compromise might seem small as a percentage, but it's big in an impact. I can write the how will you measure your life? Surprisingly, Clayton Christensen passed away this year, sadly, but he was very well known for this topic as well. So do read about him. He's a very nice man who had a very embarrassing moment when I met him. I did not know he had a cane when he walked, and I tried to shake his hand. So, awkward story for some other time. Coming back to the topic, And the way I realized I can't not survive it, I was like, okay, fine. I asked the guy in the restaurant, what's the next fizzy drink alternative that you can get me that's not just soda? And he was like, Barbican. I was like, I don't like Barbican, but I was like, okay, it's not the same thing as soda. That's a compromise I can take on. I was like, fine, for now, chal jayega. That's one compromise. Took on Barbican for that night, went and Googled information about it, and it sort of had the same components that I was trying to avoid with soda. I was like, okay, fine, I can root it out, but I need to definitely look for alternatives. And that night, I made a list of alternatives that I can easily find everywhere. Since then, I've been on things like laban, milk, Perrier water, carbonated water. I come off like a very fancy person to people because of it as well. So it's a very big plus. I'm not as fancy, but it works. So all these things that are alternatives that will partially help you subdue your craving with that specific item help a lot. And that's what I would say is the way. So if I were to put on a scale of doing something bad is -10, you need to get yourself to 0 first. And then you go to 1 or 2 and then 5 and forward. But get yourself to 0 first. And then from there, sustainably build yourself into getting to 10 or so. Anything else to add? Bushra, you're smiling a lot.
I just like to smile. That's it.
No, you don't. But like I said, she's my mortal enemy too. I see her like with Singh or Sabkuch, like as a devil in my mind. She's a very nice person, very caring, but that's the image in my head.
You know this is being recorded, Yaseen. It's going on YouTube.
Okay. I mean, you're gonna be a celebrity, you tell me. So I need.
We do have more questions, but before that, can we just do a few admin things? So first of all, just want to remind you guys that we would really like to get your testimonials, and Bushra has put the email address in the chat. It's pyf at, or is it pyfdubai@gmail.com, I believe. Just check the chat. So please do send those in with a picture of you preferably. And second of all, can we please do our group pictures before we move on to the questions? So I would really request everyone to turn on their cameras so we can have a nice picture.
She's asking nicely.
I'm asking nicely right now.
Whoever can, to whatever extent possible, please keep your cams on.
What does mean? What does whatever extent possible mean? Like, I said.
Okay. So I think we should do one regular photo, and then we should do the super person pose. There too.
I like that.
Yeah.
We did a philosopher pose for the philosophy workshop. It was very good. So, okay. First one's regular. Just smile. And I have to go to another screen because there are too many people. Yay. Okay. And one super person pose.
Got it.
I don't know how to do this, but you guys.
I don't know. You can do this or you can do that. It depends. Whichever one you're feeling comfortable with, and your parents will be like, "Tum log pagal ho gaye ho hi nahi?" But whatever works. Go for it. Okay. Let me know who's taking a picture.
I'm trying not to laugh. Okay.
Cool. I like it.
No, wait. Another screen. Another screen. So just one more. Once more, guys. Give it all you got. Super people. I love this. Now we can continue with questions.
Okay. Asma's had her hand up for a while, and then we've got another question in the chat. So Asma, go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like you've answered most of the questions which I had, but like I just really want an advice from you. Like basically, like I have had like I've thought about what I want to do. Like I basically took science because I knew like, okay, I know this I want to do in this specific area. I had choice between commerce and science, and I was like, I know what I want to do. So I want to do science. But the fact that I have so many options and I'm like, I know what I don't like, but I just don't know what I like yet. I'm trying out different things, but I'm still like, if I have interest in each and every field, I just don't know what to go for. Like they say that, you should know what your passion is, what you're passionate about. But what if you're just passionate about more than one thing? And what if you just like, how do you like get to know it? Like what you do?
Yeah. So I literally just answered the same question from a kid I mentor today. And he said, first of all, he was like, I don't know what I want, or I don't know what I like, but you've answered that question. You said you know what you like, but you just like too many things. And then he's like, okay, what if I end up liking too many things? I was like, well, the way to overcome the question of what to do for me has always come down to one statement, which might be a bit very serious for you to understand right now, but you will have to spend time figuring out, which is purpose. If you have a purpose that you're building things for, and you start learning things based on, or doing things based on that purpose, you will achieve a way more efficient path in terms of application. So in my life, I've not been a very successful person in general, but I have been a very exposed person. I've had exposure to people, backgrounds, corporation, projects, whatever it is. And the main thing was I was focusing on solving a very specific problem. Starting with the first problem I tried to solve was I was in university, I was leading a student chapter, and I was like, okay, how do I make my colleagues in the computer science engineering department connect with all these corporations? Because Dubai has 250 of the top global companies in the world and corporations, right? How do you connect with these companies to our university and get them exposure? And these companies wanted students to hire from as well. So it's like Kellogg, it's a very typical DC matchmaking kind of a thing where I'm introducing A to B. But the idea was, okay, how do you connect things and do things for people? And my statement and purpose is leave it better than you found it. So that's what I live by. So the question I was asking was, how can I leave my department better? And further research I did was, what are some of the problems my colleagues are facing? Most of them said, we don't have exposure to companies. So I had the problem statement. Now I was like, how do I solve this? Found the solution, connect the companies with Dubai, and then I executed the plan. And in that process, I picked up on things like business, technology, design, even science majors, economics, like things I would never learn. I picked up those topics because I was paying attention on the problem, whatever I needed. So I didn't become an expert on any of those topics, but the problem of how do you engage students with corporations, I was an expert on in that specific year. So am I making sense? So like what I'm trying to say is, okay, I'm not making sense to you, I can see that. What I'm trying to say is, okay, let's put it this way. Do you have a paper and pen in front of you, Asma?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. If can you have 3 or more pencils or whatever different kind of objects in front of your paper, if you can keep them aligned? Like a pen, marker, or a pencil. Or if you have 3 pencils, just keep 3 pencils if you want.
Okay, yeah, I have 5 objects.
Fine, 5 objects. Keep them in front of the paper. Okay. I'm sure each one of them does a different thing on the piece of paper. Like a pencil uses erasable lines. A pen would put a blue or red line. Marker would make a thicker stroke. Paintbrush hoga to it'll have a different style, right? What you're asking me is focusing more on those objects in front of you. What I'm asking you is, what do you want to put on that piece of paper? If you say you want to draw someone, based on that, you'll go backwards and pick your object, which in this case, let's say if you want to draw something, might be a pencil. If I tell you to color something, you might go back and pick the object, which is the paintbrush, right? So you're picking your object based on what I'm asking you to put on that piece of paper. And that piece of paper in this metaphor is your life, your purpose. Okay, what do you want to build? And based on that, you pick your tool, because there are too many tools to pick from. Okay. And as you keep going,
for myself.
Yes, but you need to understand what you want to put on that piece of paper. A very good book I would recommend would be, what was it? How to Know Your Element, or something along those lines, of knowing your element, or how to know your element, or something like that. But yeah, that's a very good book in figuring out what you might want to put on that piece of paper. Okay, what would that look like? And then you pick that, because a lot of times, and this is a very typical thing, families mein kaha jata hai, Chani, you know what? Pick up the pencil. It's a very good career style. हमारी जो पुप्पू का बेटा था ना, वो गया था, उसने पढ़ा उसमें, तो उसकी career बड़ा अच्छा गया, because pick the pencil for that same reason. ठीक है, pencil's example for a very typical major. You can assume. Yeah, pick the paintbrush. इससे बहुत अच्छी salary मिलती है यहाँ पे, वगैरह वगैरह. But it doesn't matter. What matters is how do you, or what do you want to put on that piece of paper?
True.
Cool. Did I answer that question?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really did get.
Okay. So focus on figuring out your purpose and use the things you find interesting. Sometimes you won't even find them interesting, but you'll find them appealing because they will help you build your piece of paper that you want to put in there. And that's the best way to go for abundance in interest.
Please send the name of the book in the chat box if it's possible.
I think it's How to Find Your Element. Let me just Google it quickly. How to Find Your Element. Yeah, Finding Your Element by Ken Robinson.
I think Miriam put it in the chat actually.
Okay. Yeah, exactly, Miriam. Thank you so much. Perfect. Cool. Any last questions? I think we'll wrap it up afterwards.
I think the other questions in the chat were very similar. I hope that answered them. Zahid, do you want to ask something?
No, I'm good. Is my hand raised or something?
Yeah, your hand is raised.
I think that was from before. Oh, thank you.
Any other questions? Come on, people, ask up. Okay.
Going once, going twice. It's gone. Ooh.
Nice.
Okay, and with that, I think we can close the session. Please don't forget to send us your testimonials, and we'll also be sending out the feedback form. Thank you so much, Yaseen. This was very different from our other sessions, and you really did it really well. So thank you. And thanks to our volunteers for showing up last minute, even though we just informed them yesterday that we're coming.
Heba has a question, I think.
Oh, Heba? Okay.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, like, sometimes if a person, they're looking for mentors, so I just want to ask, like, what are the ways where you can find good mentors, and how can you be in contact with them, and how can you maybe have a connection or something, like just to get mentoring, like you mentioned earlier. So yeah, this was my question.
So sorry, just to make sure I understand your question. It's how do you get mentors?
Yeah, how do you if you want to do something, for example, you have something specific in your mind already, and you want to do that, you want to, yeah, you want to get with knowledge and resourceful. So how would you get in contact with those sort of mentors, and yeah.
In 2017, me and my startup co-founders were randomly providing artificial intelligence as a service or machine learning as a service to random clients. That sounds okay to normal people, but as a business model, that's very bad because we do not have a specific target audience. What changed was when we reached out to a mentor who was the leading cybersecurity guy I've met in my life till date, in a global leading cybersecurity firm. How we reached out to him was we asked ourselves, who is a leader in cybersecurity and has any involvement with youth platforms? Did a LinkedIn search, found 10 people, reached out to those 10 people. Out of those 10, 3 replied. Out of those 3, only 1 came to meet us. That one guy was enough that our startup survived on the deal that he ended up, first he mentored us and then he gave us deals to work on because we were one of the few people doing it. Okay, I think we survived on 6 to 8 months based on his the project that he got us for the funding. So what I would say is basic Google, basic research, basic finding platform, but a very good channel is PYF, and especially Bushra as well and her team, because they have a huge network. Like the people and the diversity of the people doing these workshops was very diverse. So she herself is very well connected. She knows me, she knows other people who are connected as well, way more than I am. She seems like she's a pretty simple सी लड़की नहीं है, मैं बता रहा हूँ बड़ी खतरनाक है, ठीक है? So she knows her way, and definitely she can definitely add value to those things. So reaching out to people who you have a network with and then looking and doing your self research, I would say are the 2 things. Third thing, मैंने कभी कभार काम कर गई randomly was a family network. So dad's friend somehow randomly, because my dad's a social person, somehow कोई ना कोई network निकल जाता है other times. So even that, and there's no shame, I think, in asking your parents for help you're dependent on them either way. So why be ashamed about it? Does that answer your question, Amber? Cool.
Honestly,
so much.
it's easier than ever to reach out to people, and people are more than willing these days to help you. So just reach out, try different avenues, make that initial step, it's super important. So yeah, so I think no further questions. We can conclude now. So we'll look forward to your testimonials. We look forward to having Yaseen back for more workshops. And all of you, our next workshop is next week, next Saturday, technical writing. And we'll be sharing the details for that soon. All right, with that, have a good evening, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Sorry, answering the question.
Bye.